Hey there, welcome to Move with Joe. My name's Joe Kelly. I'm an advanced certified structural medicine specialist, and all that is just fancy jargon for a person who helps to organize and have you move better through your body. So what I'm gonna do today is share a quick little movement routine to help those of you that are working from your home office or office where you're struggling with sitting for a long period of time and starting to accumulate tension or discomfort in the neck, shoulders, or upper back. So first thing I want you to do is find a seat that's flat and ideally is a little bit, the hips are a little bit higher than your knees. And so go ahead and sit down on the seat. And as you sit there, notice which sit bone has more weight into it. So oftentimes people will have a preference to shift over one sit bone a little bit more than the other. And if you're having a hard time noticing, maybe if you thought about which side would be easier to shift onto, would it be easier to shift onto your left or shift onto your right? So oftentimes we're not used to asking these questions about how we're organizing ourselves, and as we ask more questions, we'll be able to have more awareness of those slight shifts between one side versus the other. So another thing that you can pay attention to is your base of support in your feet. So is there one foot that you have a little bit more weight in than the other? So for example, right now, the way I'm sitting, I can feel slightly more pressure in my left heel than I can in my right heel. And maybe you might notice one of your big toes has more weight. So one of the goals that we're going to start to work with is how do we distribute the tone, the forces through the whole of ourselves, and how we can better organize through the whole of ourselves to then support the upper body. So I'm going to have you imagine that you're sitting on a clock and 12 o'clock is out in front of you, 6 o'clock is directly behind you. So just begin to rock your pelvis back and forth between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And notice which way is easier for you to move. So some people might have a tendency, a preference to roll back, and some people might be organized in a way where it's really easy for them to roll forward. So just notice what's your preference, which way comes easier. And also notice at what point do you get to your head gets highest to the ceiling, and at what point does the head begin to shrink down lower from the ceiling. And if any of these are uncomfortable, reduce the movement, the rate of movement, the speed, and the distance until it's comfortable, and or just imagine the movement. So none of these movements in particular are worth doing if they're going to create any discomfort. Okay, good. So now what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and interlace your fingers, and I'm going to have you bring your hands behind your head, not touching. I'm going to have you slowly begin to slide your arms back and forth. And then as you do this, I'm going to have you begin to look at the arm, the elbow that is moving away from you. So in this case, there you go. We're going to start to rotate the head so that the eyes begin to look away, or eyes begin to look towards the elbow going away. Good. And then pause for a moment. You can let your hands relax, let the blood trickle back in. And once again, bring the hands behind your head. And this time, I'm going to have you take the back of your head towards the elbow that is coming towards your head. So the back of the head turns to the elbow that is coming towards. All right, good. Give that a rest. And just notice if you were to begin to turn a little to the right or a little to the left, which way would be easier to turn? So you can just test out moving a little to the right and a little to the left. And then if you were to have to look up over your shoulder, which shoulder would be easier for you to turn and look over? Good. All right. So you can kind of get a reference of where is it, if you move slowly, where is the first point of resistance? So if I move slowly enough, I get to some resistance right about here. And I notice it kind of along my rib cage. All right, so now we're going to bring the hands behind you again, and we're going to start to rotate to the right, just to wherever's comfortable. And then at your end range, wherever's comfortable, what I'm going to have you do is stay turned at that end range, and then again begin to go sideways, side bending through your torso. All right, good. Give that a rest for a moment. You can turn again to that side and just notice if it's a little bit easier for you. So for me now, I'm getting a good 20 degrees more. And then let's do the same thing going to the left. Begin to turn. And then at the end range, pause there, and then begin to side bend back and forth. So we're starting to move all these parts of the ribs that never get to move while we're sitting at our desk all day. We're getting a lot of movement through our shoulders, through our head, through our neck. All right, good. Let that relax. Try just rocking back and forth on the pelvis as you rest the arms. You can try going between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Just noticing how you roll over your hips. And notice whether or not you're rocking your torso over top of your pelvis, and then it looks something like this, versus actually moving the pelvis. So one of the examples when you're lifting your pelvis, let's say I'm lifting this side, my shoulders are getting shorter. They're coming together, the shoulders and the pelvis, versus if I'm just teeter-tottering over top. All right, good. So now bring your arms straight out in front of you, and you're gonna rotate again to the right. Bring your left hand down. If it's comfortable, you can place it all the way down on the ground. And then rotate the upper hand up and down, backwards and forward, rotating. Good. And then come back up. You bring the arms out again. We'll rotate the right hand forward, bring the left hand up, place a hand down on the ground. You can rotate back and forth. All right, good. And then come back up. And so after doing that little short sequence, this is just a part of an hour-long awareness through movement lesson. I can already feel some more expansion, some more depth to my rib cage. So if you were to take a deep inhale now, just notice the capacity, the three-dimensional space of the rib cage. See if you can breathe into your chest and into your upper back. Nice big inhale in, exhale. Again, just rock back and forth between 12 and 6. Notice if the movement there has become easier for you. In a lot of cases, people will notice that they have more range with less effort. And then just try rotating and looking over your shoulders now and seeing where you get to easily. And then lastly, just tune yourself back into your contact with the floor as well as your sit bones and notice what's changed there. So by starting to integrate all these pieces, these moving pieces with the shoulders and the head and the eye movement and torso and rib cage, what we've done is started to distribute the tone and the movement through the whole of ourselves. And so for me right now, I don't have that same glaring distinction between my right heel and my left heel. So now the weight's more evenly distributed in my feet. I have a clear sense of being on top of my sit bones. And now I also feel like I have a lot more space and volume. And when the rib cage is opened up, that creates the base of support for your shoulders and your head and neck. So this is a great little routine that you can use throughout your day at work, whenever you have a couple minutes free, to just be able to begin to give yourself more variety, moving your body in a variety of different patterns that it's not used to. Starts to create a neurological change in the tissue and the tension that we accumulate, particularly in the extensors in the back. So when we were doing this flexion, extension, and rotation, we're starting to balance out the tone in the extensor muscles and the flexor muscles. So stay tuned for more. You can hit the subscribe and like button, and I look forward to answering any questions, and I'll talk to you soon.